Human existence perpetually floats upon an ocean of unknown forces, an abyss of archaic images that threaten to devour the fragile structure of the ego. At any given moment, and it is precisely here, in this perilous frontier between the light of consciousness and the unfathomable darkness of the unconscious, that the absolute necessity for a boundary arises, a demarcation that the ancient Greeks called temenos. Have you ever felt that your mind is an invaded territory, a public square where alien voices, social expectations, and ancestral traumas circulate without permission, destroying any possibility of internal silence or real healing? Because without a circle of protection, the work of the soul is simply impossible. I ask you to subscribe to this channel, leave your support, and comment on your own feeling of psychic invasion, as we are about to draw the magic circle that protects the mystery of your transformation from the claws of a world that wishes only to fragment your essence. The mystery we hold for the end of this journey is the secret of how your own suffering can become the construction material for the walls of your internal sanctuary. But to understand this, we must first descend to the foundations of what it means to be truly contained. The concept of temenos is not a mere theoretical abstraction, but an archetypal reality that has manifested since the dawn of civilization, when man realized that not all land was equal and that certain spaces should be removed from common use and dedicated exclusively to the gods, thus creating a radical separation between the profane and the sacred. Imagine a piece of ground surrounded by stones or marked by an invisible line, where the laws of the outside world cease to function and where chronological time is replaced by the eternal time of myth, a place where the presence of the numinous is so intense that the ordinary individual cannot enter without proper ritual preparation. Carl Jung observed that this external need for sanctuaries reflected a deep internal need of the psyche, for the process of individuation requires a container, an alchemical vessel that withstands the pressure of the most violent transformations without allowing the sacred substance of being to spill into the chaos of the collective. Without this circle, psychic energy dissipates into useless distractions or, worse, is flooded by the corrosive waters of the collective unconscious, leading to ego inflation or the neurotic fragmentation that plagues contemporary man. In clinical practice and direct experience with the unconscious, the temenos manifests as the analyst's office or as the therapeutic relationship itself, a space where the patient can finally lay down their masks and face the monsters inhabiting their dreams without the fear of being destroyed by social judgment. This space must be hermetically sealed, like the glass vessel of the ancient alchemists, the so-called vas bene clausum, which ensured that the raw material of the great work was not contaminated by foreign influences. For any crack in this containment would allow the soul to escape and the transmutation process to be interrupted. Jung described the creation of this magic circle as an act of supreme vigilance, where therapist and patient draw, through word and symbol, a frontier that protects the birth of the new self, allowing light and shadow to meet in a controlled and transformative duel. It is a necessary isolation, a cloistering that does not aim at escaping reality, but rather at strengthening the central core of the individual so that they may eventually return to the world without being dissolved by it. Many times, the psyche projects the need for the temenos through the image of the mandala, that sacred geometric drawing representing totality and always possessing a center protected by concentric circles and symbolic barriers. When an individual in crisis begins to draw mandalas spontaneously, they are actually trying to rebuild their own temenos, trying to erect walls against the chaos threatening to disintegrate their personality, seeking an order that protects them from the invasion of autonomous archetypes. These drawings are maps of a sacred territory where psychological work can finally happen, a laboratory of the soul where the tensions of opposites can be held together until a third thing, a transcendent function, emerges to unify what was broken. The magic circle is not a prison but a liberation, for only within a well-defined limit can the infinite be explored safely, allowing the ego to dialogue with the self, without being annihilated by the magnitude of this internal authority. The danger of living without a temenos is the danger of being a house without doors or windows in the middle of a sandstorm, where every grain of dust represents someone else's opinion. a political advertisement, or a family demand that penetrates your most intimate room and stifles your authentic voice. Modern man, in his rationalistic arrogance, discarded temples and rituals, believing he could live in a purely profane world. But what he achieved was only transforming his own mind into an unprotected battlefield where he is constantly bombarded by images and affects that do not belong to him. Contemporary neurosis is, in large part, a pathology of the lack of boundaries, a psychic inflammation caused by the absence of a space where the individual can simply be, protected from the tyranny of the collective that demands productivity, conformity, and total transparency. We need to rediscover the art of closing the door, of drawing the line on the floor, and of declaring, with the authority of one who cares for their own salvation, that this small territory of consciousness is sacred ground, and that nothing from the outside has permission to profane it. Within the Teminos, the shadow ceases to be a terrifying enemy chasing us in the dark corners of life, and becomes a necessary guest for the banquet of integration. For within the safe circle, we have the courage to look at what is most disturbing in ourselves. It is only in the safety of this protected space that we can bear the sight of our own evil, our own cowardice, and our most unconfessable desires, transforming what was once poison into medicine through conscious observation and legitimate suffering. The magic circle acts as a catalyst that prevents the alchemical reaction from exploding outward, keeping the heat of the internal conflict concentrated until the philosopher's stone, or the center of our totality, begins to glow through the ashes of the old ego. Without this containment, the encounter with the shadow would lead us to psychosis or violent projection onto others. But within the Teminos, the encounter becomes a unio mystica, a sacred marriage between the disunited parts of our existence. Historically, the Teminos was guarded by guardians, by mythological figures who demanded passwords or sacrifices to allow passage, symbolizing that entry into the sacred space of the soul is not a free right, but an achievement requiring discipline and respect. In our daily lives, these guardians are our practices of introspection, our commitment to recording dreams, and our ability to say no to the exhaustive demands that try to steal our time and vital energy. Building a Teminos requires a sacrifice of the external world, a momentary renunciation of the validation of others and the noise of the masses, so that we may hear the whisper of that inner voice that only speaks when silence is absolute and the walls are solid. It is an invisible architecture, yet more real than any stone building, for it is where our sanity rests and from where we draw the strength to face destiny with dignity and autonomy. The loss of the sacred in modernity has transformed the world into a monotonous desert, where everything is exposed and nothing is protected, creating a society of individuals hungry for meaning, but who fear the isolation necessary to find it. The Teminos is the antidote to this desiccation of the soul, for it restores the dimension of mystery and depth, reminding us that there are secrets that must be kept, and transformations that can only occur in the dark, far from the prying eyes of the collectivity. When you dedicate time to meditate, to write in your journal, or to simply contemplate the void, you are reaffirming the limits of your magic circle. You are repairing the breaches in your psychic walls and inviting the self to occupy the place that is rightfully its own. This is the most radical resistance anyone can exercise today, the refusal to be totally transparent to the world, maintaining a reserve of mystery that is the source of all creativity and all personal power. At the end of this journey, we realize that the Teminos is not just a place we go to, but a state of being we carry with us, a center of gravity that keeps us whole even when we walk through the most chaotic crowd. The secret I promise to reveal is that your suffering, your wounds, and your weaknesses are, in fact, the most resistant materials for the construction of this space. For it is where you are most vulnerable that you most need protection. And it is at this boundary that consciousness becomes sharpest. Each pain you integrate, each fear you face within your circle, makes the walls of your sanctuary thicker and the light of your center brighter, transforming what was once an abyss of despair into a fountain of wisdom. Therefore, begin right now to draw your own line, to define your own space, and to honor the God who dwells in your center. For psychological work can only flourish where the sacred is respected. and the profane is kept at a distance. May this final echo resonate in your mind as a call to build your own internal cathedral, where every thought is a prayer and every dream is a revelation of destiny, inviting you to become the architect of your own peace. If you feel it is time to raise your walls and protect what is most precious in your existence, let this knowledge be the first brick of your new foundation, and share your experience with those who, like you, seek totality in the midst of chaos. The circle is drawn, the vessel is closed, and the work can finally begin. For you are no longer helpless before the infinite. You are now within your own Taminos, where true life awaits to be lived. May the numinous guide you, may the shadow teach you, and may your center sustain you, today and in all the days to come, until the circle is complete and the soul returns to its original home.